Welcome back. In part 1, we revisited the classic meals and savory snacks of our past. But let's be honest, the best part of any meal is dessert. And the kitchens of our youth were filled with some of the most innovative, magical, and sometimes bizarre sweet treats ever created. Today, in part 2, we're indulging our sweet tooth and looking back at the desserts and breakfast bites that have since disappeared from our shelves. Whip and chill. Long before Instagram-worthy desserts were a thing, there was whip and chill. This was the 1960s answer to a fancy dessert without any real cooking skills. This powdered mix transformed into a light, airy, mousse-like creation that wasn't quite pudding and wasn't quite whipped cream. I remember watching my mom make it. She'd pour cold milk into a bowl, add the powder, and beat it with an electric mixer for 5 minutes. It was like watching a science experiment as the liquid tripled in volume, becoming something cloud-like. It felt elegant, sophisticated, and incredibly futuristic. The magical powder that turned a bowl of milk into a fancy dessert right before your eyes. Jello 1, 2, 3. If regular Jello was the dependable family sedan of desserts, then Jello 1, 2, 3 was the convertible sports car. It was flashier, more complex, and guaranteed to impress. Introduced in 1969, this product promised 3 distinct layers in a single dessert: clear jelly on the bottom, a creamy mousse in the middle, and a light foam on top. The magic happened during refrigeration, when the mixture would separate into perfect layers based on density. When it worked, it was impressive. But I remember a few times when my mom's didn't quite set right. It was a high-stakes dessert that required a little bit of luck. The dessert that was part chemistry, part magic, and a whole lot of fun. Morton Honey Buns. Long before Cinnabon conquered shopping malls, Morton Honey Buns reigned supreme in the world of mass-produced breakfast pastries. Introduced in the 50s, these sweet spiral-shaped buns offered the indulgence of a homemade pastry with none of the work. Each package contained 6 generously sized rolls, swirled with cinnamon and drenched in a honey-flavored glaze that would become crackling and slightly crystallized when you baked them. They were a weekend breakfast tradition for my family, a special treat that made Saturday mornings feel amazing. The most distinctive feature was that sticky glaze, which seemed specifically designed to find its way onto your fingers, your face, and probably the furniture. The sticky, gooey, glorious breakfast treat that was worth every single messy napkin. PDQ chocolate drink mix. The battle for chocolate milk supremacy in the 60s and 70s was fierce. But PDQ had a secret weapon. Instead of a fine powder that always clumped at the bottom of the glass, PDQ came as tiny chocolate beads or pellets that dissolved almost instantly in milk. The name itself, PDQ, stood for pretty darn quick, and it lived up to the hype. I remember shaking the glass and watching the little beads just disappear, as if performing a dairy-based magic trick. It felt like it came from a magical cow that produced chocolate milk naturally. It was a small innovation, but for a kid, it was everything. The chocolate milk mix that finally solved the problem of the dreaded powder clump at the bottom of the glass. Bourdain's ice milk. The year is 1963. Diet culture is beginning to influence American food choices, but the frozen dessert aisle offers few options. Enter Bourdain's ice milk. This was the compromise dessert that promised the satisfaction of ice cream with fewer calories and less fat. It wasn't quite ice cream, and it wasn't quite frozen yogurt. It occupied its own distinct category. The taste and texture created a unique eating experience. It melted faster than regular ice cream, sometimes transforming into a puddle before you'd finished. It was a race against time that added an element of urgency to dessert. The light, guilt-free dessert that you had to eat pretty darn quick. Carnation breakfast bars. Ask anyone who grew up in the 1970s about Carnation breakfast bars, and you'll likely see their eyes light up. These revolutionary meal replacement bars developed a cult following. Marketed as a complete breakfast in portable form, they offered busy Americans a way to eat their morning meal on the go. But the best part? They straddled the line between health food and a treat. They came in flavors like chocolate chip and chocolate crunch, and tasted remarkably like a candy bar. It was the nutritional equivalent of getting away with eating dessert for breakfast without your mother noticing. The breakfast bar that tasted like a candy bar, and we weren't about to ask any questions. Toastettes. The breakfast pastry wars of the 60s and 70s were a fierce battleground, fought with frosting, fruit filling, and millions of marketing dollars. And while we all know that Pop-Tarts ultimately claimed victory and won the war, for a time, they faced a serious and, some might say, superior competitor. That competitor was Nabisco's Toastettes. Many toast pastry connoisseurs from back in the day will still tell you that Toastettes were, in fact, the better product. The most noticeable difference, and the one that created a loyal following, was the crust. Toastettes featured a distinctly crunchier, flakier exterior that maintained its texture even after being blasted in the toaster. This crispier shell contrasted nicely with the sweet, gooey filling inside, creating a more complex and, dare I say, more satisfying eating experience than their softer crusted competitors. Flavor innovation became a key battleground, and Toastettes offered the standards like strawberry and blueberry, but also introduced more adventurous options like Dutch apple and Boston cream pie. At their peak in the mid-70s, they captured a significant chunk of the market. So, what ultimately doomed them? It wasn't their quality, but rather their position as the number 2 brand in a market where being second best meant eventual extinction. It's like showing up to a talent show right after Elvis. You might have a great voice, but nobody's going to remember you were even there. The unsung hero of the toaster pastry wars. A crispier, crunchier alternative that many still miss today. Jello vegetable flavors. And now, we venture into the truly bizarre. Some food ideas are so fundamentally misguided that they eventually become fascinating, almost terrifying, historical curiosities. Jello's vegetable flavors fall squarely into this category. During the 1960s, when molded gelatin salads reached the absolute peak of their popularity, General Foods made a decision that still baffles the mind. They introduced savory Jello flavors designed specifically for those wobbly, gelatinous creations that graced every American dinner table and potluck. The vegetable Jello lineup included such questionable offerings as celery, mixed vegetable, seasoned tomato, and the particularly exotic Italian salad. These were flavors that sound more like a punishment than a dessert. Unlike the sweet Jello we all knew and loved, these savory versions were intended to suspend meats, vegetables, and other savory ingredients in a wobbly, translucent medium. Marketing materials and cookbooks from the era cheerfully suggested serving celery Jello with seafood salad, or mixed vegetable Jello with chunks of ham. I remember seeing one of these creations at a family gathering once, a shimmering tomato-flavored ring with bits of shrimp suspended in it. I was both horrified and fascinated. The most disturbing aspect wasn't just its existence, but the genuine enthusiasm with which some home cooks embraced it. It raises serious questions about whether the 1960s food scene was an elaborate practical joke that just went a little too far. A bizarre culinary experiment that proves that just because you can put something in Jello doesn't mean you should. From the magic of Jello 123 to the simple joy of a carnation breakfast bar, these weren't just products, they were a part of our history. They are gone now, but the memories and the flavors remain. What's the one forgotten food from your past that you wish you could taste just one more time? Let us know in the comments below. And if this trip down the grocery aisle of memory made you hungry, please give it a like and subscribe for more.